It's day 45 of 118 days with the Tudors, and today we're thinking about 1529. And this is the year that Thomas Wolsey falls from power. So at the start of the year, if you saw yesterday's video, so in 1528, that's when things are really heating up with the king seeking this divorce. We've got Cardinal Campeggio who Henry thinks is going to sort out this divorce for him, but actually the Pope has told him to massively stall and delay. So by January of 1529, not very much has happened, and everyone's getting a bit frustrated, particularly Anne Boleyn. So we know that she was maybe keeping Henry at a distance, but when a position of possible marriage appears rather than mistress, she's happy to push forward with that. Now she starts to think that it's actually Wolsey's fault, and she personally blames him, and her mistrust in him feeds into what the king is thinking. Other people around Wolsey that aren't necessarily Anne Boleyn supporters also are starting to sort of gang up on him, and they're starting to gather evidence for things they believe that Wolsey has done wrong. This isn't the first or the last time we see this in the Tudor court. People rallying against somebody in a position of power. Maybe it's jealousy, maybe it's genuine concern, who knows. So in January, Anne's turning on Wolsey, Henry's not so sure, and other people are starting to form some evidence against Wolsey. So on the 31st of May, the Legatine Court opens at Blackfriars, and that's when we're actually having the hearings between Henry and Catherine and trying to sort all of this out. In June, that's when we see Catherine and Henry really go head to head, and Catherine appeals to Henry to admit to the court that he knows that her marriage to Arthur was not consummated. Henry refuses to answer, and Catherine, like the queen she is, walks out. Decides at the end of July that everything needs to be adjourned, and we're not going to carry on with this until October. So this frustration is building. Now, unrest is still growing against Wolsey. At this point, they have come up with 34 things that they don't like about Wolsey. They're trying to say that he's blinding the king. The king isn't really interested, actually, at this point. He's not really responding to it. He still very much considers Wolsey to be a friend. He's one of the only people he's ever referenced as actually being a friend. And so he's not kind of going with this. So the people that had planned to really take down Wolsey at this point have to sort of step back and say, okay, not now. In the August, we see Anne Boleyn more and more against Wolsey. Henry starts to ignore Wolsey's political advice, which is a real sort of turning point for Wolsey. When Wolsey sees Henry again in September, there's two conflicting accounts about how Henry behaved towards Wolsey. So George Cavendish, we've mentioned before, he was someone who knew Wolsey and wrote Wolsey's biography. So Cavendish says that the Cardinal Wolsey was humiliated at this reunion. No lodgings were provided for him for where he needed to stay, where the king was staying, and that Anne was just doing her absolute most to prevent any sort of reconciliation between Henry and Wolsey. So surprise, surprise, Anne's getting the blame here from Cavendish. However, a servant called Thomas Wolsey reported that there was no difference in the relationship between Henry and Wolsey at this point. They spoke together amicably and just got on as normal. So point, late September, October, Wolsey, he's on sort of thin ice here, and he's really got to fight for his position. He is in a really difficult place as papal legate, as a cardinal, so only a pope can make somebody a cardinal. So he is sort of the Pope's representative in England, and he has loyalty to the Pope, and he's always said to the Pope, whatever you need from Henry, I can do it. But he's also Henry's right-hand man, and he's always said to Henry, whatever you need from the Pope, I can do it. Henry expects his loyalty, the Pope expects his loyalty. So he is stuck in the middle here. Now, it is treasonable to sort of take orders or maintain jurisdiction from another country or another power. So by the fact that he's maintaining the Pope's jurisdiction in England by not getting this divorce, by doing what the Pope wants, essentially, he can be accused of a special type of treason called praemunire. this means that he is maintaining another authority over the kings. 18th of October, he's lost some key positions here. He can't lose his position as cardinal because that's given by the Pope, and he also does retain his position as the Archbishop of York. He is going to make his way up to York to just carry on his job as the Archbishop of York. When people see him leaving, they assume that he's heading for the Tower, which he isn't. But as he's leaving, he's approached by Henry's groom of the stall, Henry Norris, who gives him the king's ring and says, "The king has said to tell you, don't worry, we're still as good friends as always." So to cut a long story short, for the rest of this year, he is still very hopeful that his position might be reinstated. The king doesn't seem to hold any particular animosity towards him, but the people around him are really fighting for him to be held up for this treason charge. December of that year, this is when we see maybe our first mention of Thomas Cromwell. So Wolsey writes to Cromwell and reassures him that he's only ever been faithful and submissive to the king, and shortly after this he falls ill and he writes to Cromwell and let him know. But at this time, in December when he's ill, the king sends his physician to check on him, and even Anne Boleyn sends a token, sends a gift. So at the end of 1529, we're not quite sure where we stand. So we'll just check in with him tomorrow in 1530 and see what happens. So tomorrow I will see you for 1530 when we've got a not very well Wolsey, and let's see what else is going on with Catherine and Henry. See you tomorrow.